Hi everyone, so today you're going to be working on your third at-home lesson and you are starting the algebra unit. Today I'm going to go through your booklet that you received, and this is the first 2 pages from your booklet. So you're going to be actually doing the first 2 pages for homework, and I'm going to start on page 3. So make sure that you have that out, and as you follow along with my video, you should be filling in the blanks on your note. All right, so I also want to just show you what we're going to cover today. So this is the booklet. First 2 pages you will do for homework. There is a math dictionary link that I am putting on Google Classroom that you can use for the definitions for these terms, and you're writing an example for each one. You can do this by hand and then take a picture of your work and submit it, or if you want to create this table in a Google Doc and type your answers out, that is sufficient as well. Today I'm going to go through the algebra vocabulary. So I'm going to go through page 3. I'm going to go through page 4. And then on page 5 is the new topic, collecting like terms. I'm going to go through that as well. Okay, because it's a 2-hour lesson. You should spend 2 hours on your math homework today. So 2 hours, that includes taking the note, watching this video, and then also doing the homework questions that are at the end, that are also attached in Google Classroom. But you should really spend 2 hours on math today, and then the other 2 hours you should spend on English today, if you have English in the afternoon. If you've got, you might have another subject as well. But take a look at your calendar and see what your second subject is for today. All right, so the vocabulary is on page 3, so make sure you've got that open. Expressions in algebra are called, whoops, I don't want to be doing that. They're called polynomials, and polynomials are made up of different terms, and these terms are separated by operations plus and minus. Okay, so add and subtract. When you see those symbols, you know that a new term is coming next. The sign of a term belongs to that particular term. Okay, so if you're copying these notes down, then you can pause the video whenever you need to if I'm going a bit too fast. State the terms in each polynomial. So these are different polynomials, and the terms we said on the previous slide are separated by pluses and minuses. So there's a plus here, which means this would be one term and this would be a second term. So there are 2 terms here, and they're both positive. The 2x doesn't have a sign in front of it, which means it's positive 2x, and the 3y has a plus in front of it, so that one's also positive. In the next polynomial, we have 3 terms, and one is, we have a subtract sign here and an addition sign here. So we have 3 different terms, and they are 5a, negative 4c squared, because there's a negative sign in the front, and then positive 8 as our last term. We could actually write a positive sign here as well if we wanted to, just to be consistent with the 8 that I have a positive sign in the front. Okay, but whether you write the plus or not, it doesn't really matter. If there's no sign, we just assume that it's positive. For number 3, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. Okay, and you can see here I didn't write the positive in front of the 4 and the 6x squared y. All right, continuing on with page 3, parts of the term. So here's a term, negative 5x squared, and it has different parts. So the negative 5 is the number that's in front of the x squared, and we call that a coefficient. And then the x squared part we call the variable part. And the coefficient is always written in front of the variable. So you want the number first and then the letters after that. Referencing terms, terms are identified by their variables, so by the letters. The terms without variables are called constants. So sometimes you will have a term that is just a number, and that's called a constant. Right at the end here we have -7, there's no letters with it. That would be called a constant. Identify the m term. So which of these terms just has an m as the letter? It would be 6m. So that term is 6m. Identify the coefficient of the xy squared term. So coefficient means the number in the front, and the xy squared term is right here, so that would be -3. Identify the coefficient of the a term. That's the first term here. So if there's no number in the front of it, we assume there's a 1. It's 1a. And identify the constant term, and that's the one at the end with no letters, -7. Meaning of the terms within a term, multiplication is understood. Okay, so that means that we're assuming that the 3 is being multiplied by the x. Okay, 3 times x. X squared means x times x. 5m squared means 5 times m times m. And 5m in brackets, all squared, means the entire thing is being squared. So it's 5m times 5m, or you could say 5 times m times 5 times m. ab squared means a times b times b. The b's being squared, so there's actually 2 b's there. A squared b would be a times b. Negative x squared would be negative x times x. All right, there's just one negative sign. We're not squaring the negative x. We are squaring just the x with one negative sign in the front. This one has brackets, so for this question, we are actually squaring the entire thing. So we're squaring negative x times negative x. And so now we're on page 4, conventions for writing terms. In a term, if more than one letter appears, they should be written in alphabetical order. Okay, so if you have an expression that has an x and a y, make sure that you're writing the x first and then the y. Here we have 4xbm. Write these in alphabetical order. So b should go first, then m, and then x. So 4bmx. This expression here should be 3x squared y with a -3. It should be -3x squared y in the front. Polynomials involving the same letter are always written with decreasing exponents. All right, so in this expression here, we have an 4x term and a 5x squared term, and then a -5. The x squared has a larger exponent than the x, so the positive 5x squared should be written first. If you're moving terms around, make sure that the sign that's directly in front of the term moves with that term. Okay, so I've moved this to the front. This was also positive, that's second, and then at the end it's -5, so subtract 5. For this expression here, we have 6 minus 14x cubed minus 3x squared. So this term here, the cubed term is going to go first, but you have to move the negative sign with it. All right, so it's going to start out with -x cubed, then the next term, which is -3x squared. The negative moves with it, so -3x squared. And then at the end we have a 6, and there's no sign in the front, which means it's positive. So at the end it will be +6. Okay, so whenever you move a term, the sign that's directly in front of it has to go with it. Fill in the table. So identify the polynomial name, the x term, the constant term, the coefficient of the m squared term. So we're going to do these column by column. So this is the first expression. 4xm minus 8. Polynomial name, it has 2 terms, which is called a binomial. The x term, this one doesn't have an x term. This has an xm term, and then just a constant, but there's no x term. X term means that it's a term with just the letter x. This one has an xm. So there is no x term. The constant term is -8, and the coefficient of the m squared term, again, there is no m squared term, so we're just going to say, why do I have 1 there? That is incorrect. We should say none. That was a mistake. All right. Okay, so for the second one, we have m squared minus 7x squared plus x. The polynomial is a trinomial. It has 3 terms. The x term is right at the end there, so 1x. The constant term, there is no term, that is just a number, so I'm going to say none. And then the m squared term would be 1m squared. The term would be 1m squared. The coefficient is the value in the front of it, and that would be 1 because there's no number there. The polynomial name for the next one would be a trinomial again. It has 3 terms. Each term is separated by a plus or a minus. So we have 2 separations here, which leaves us with 1, 2, 3 terms. The x term, that's the one at the end here. It would be negative 1x. The constant term, we don't have one. Oh, we do right in the middle here. We have negative 12. And the coefficient of the m squared term, we do not have one because we have a b m squared term, but not a just m squared term. And the last one, this is just one term, so it's a monomial. There is no x term. The constant term, there isn't one. And then the coefficient of the m squared term is negative 13. Almost done. Collecting like terms. All right, so how do you collect like terms? To identify like terms, they must have the same variables with the same exponents on those variables. Okay, so like terms have the letter parts that are exactly the same. So if you look at this expression here, which ones are exactly the same? So this has an x and a y, and this one also has an x and a y. X and a y is the same thing as yx. So sometimes you'll see xy, and sometimes you'll see yx. Those are considered terms with the same variables, all right? They're exactly the same. This one's written correctly because it's alphabetical order. This one should be rearranged first. So those are the same. And then we also have 2 terms, 13y and negative 14y, that can also be grouped together. So we're going to rearrange them so that these 2 red ones are next to each other and the green ones are next to each other. That's how you show your work. Be careful when you're moving terms that the sign that is directly right in the front goes with that term. So when I move this 7x squared beside that 6, or 7xy beside the 6xy, that the plus moves with it, right? I'm going to move it right next to it. And then I have these 2 terms that are right next to each other. Okay, so I moved that over there, so they're next to each other, and then I'm left with 13y minus 14y. Now you can add the coefficients of the terms that have the same ending. So 6 plus 7 is 13, so we have 13xy, and then you can do the same thing here. 13 minus 14 is negative 1, and then y. You don't do anything with the endings. They don't change. The letter parts stay the same. You're just either adding the coefficients or subtracting them depending on what the sign is. Okay, another example. We've got 4a squared, so I'm just going to circle the ones that should go together. So this one, the 4a squared, would go with the positive 13a squared and the 6a squared. And we've also got, what do we have here? We've got positive 3ab, which is the same thing as positive ba, right? I said they have the same ending. They're just flipped. And then the last one would be negative 4b, would match the negative 13b. Okay, so I wrote them next to each other. Oh, my colors don't match here. Sorry about that. The a squareds are red, but then I reversed the other colors by accident. Okay, so I rearranged them, and now you can collect like terms. We've got 13 plus 6 plus 4, which is 23, and then 3 plus 1 is 4, and then minus 4 minus 13 is negative 17b. Okay, and that's as far as we can go because now our endings are different, so we cannot combine these. Next example, is the following equation true or false? So we're wondering if we add 3x plus 4y, is the answer going to be 7xy? We're going to check to see if this is a true expression. All right, the way we do that is we select values for x and y, and I just chose random numbers for x equals 2 and y equals 1, and I'm going to sub them into this equation and see if the right side equals the left side. So on the left-hand side, this is what I have, right? Left-hand side of the equal sign. LS is short for left side, RS is short for right side of the equal sign. And on the right side, I have 7xy. So you make a little T-chart to check your work. So now replace the x with 2 and the y with 1, which will give me 3 times 2 plus 4 times 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 4 times 1 is 4, which is going to give me 10. And then on the right-hand side, I've got 7 times x times y. So 7 times 2 times 1, which is equal to 14. Okay, so because these are not equal to each other, one side equals 10, the other one equals 14, we can say that the equation is not true. Okay, 3x plus 4y is not equal to 7xy. You cannot add terms that have different endings. Okay, a couple more and that the lesson's done. So we are doing the same thing. We are going to be collecting like terms. So here we have brackets. All right. You can replace the bracket, or you can remove the brackets in the first line. All right. Because this is a plus, nothing in this bracket is going to change. If this was a minus, then you'd have to multiply everything inside the bracket by the negative first, which will be actually in your next lesson. We're not going to do that today. So for today, they're just pluses. Because it's a plus, you can just remove the brackets. Now you can collect like terms, so we can group the 3x with the 13x and the 4y with the 14y. So I'm writing them next to each other first, and then in the next step, I am adding them together. And then the last one is the same method. I just remove my brackets. Now I can group the 7a and 6a and the 3z and the negative 4z. Okay, so that is the end of your lesson. For homework, what I'd like you to do is do the definitions on pages 1 and 2 of your booklet that you've got. And I already explained what you need to do, right? Take photos and submit, or you can do a digital copy in a Google Doc and submit that instead. That's going to be due on Thursday at midnight. You've got a class with me in person on Friday. So right now I'm talking about the green A group. If you're listening to this lesson and you're in a different color group, then you will have a different due date depending on what is in your Google Classroom. But right now I'm just talking about the green group. So make sure that you get that completed. The other thing is there's going to be a homework file called Algebra, Vocab, and Collecting Like Terms in your Google Classroom. And I'll just show you what that looks like quickly. Okay, it's a file like this. So you're going to be completing these questions here. The answers are at the bottom, so try not to look at them. Try to do it without looking at the answers first, and then check your work. Some of them require you to show some work, and some of them are just one line, so there's no work required. If you're not sure about an answer, make sure that you ask me for help so that when it's time to have a quiz, you're comfortable with answering these questions. And then you're also doing the second lesson, Collecting Like Terms. Again, the answers are at the bottom. Some of them you're going to have to show work. So for example, question number 4 here, you're going to rearrange them first, write the x's together, write the coefficients or the constants together, and then add them together like I did. So try to follow my method when you are showing your work so that you can get full marks. All right, so I think that's it. So just check your Google Classroom to make sure that you're not missing anything. And this due Thursday is for the green group. So if you're in a different color group, just ignore this part and take a look at your Google Classroom to see when your homework is due. All right, good luck. And if you have any questions, you can send me an email and I will try to help you out during study hall. All right, good luck.